a scion of many worlds. With Magrica on one side and Lady Allure on the other, he watches as the army goes through the drill. Hundreds of women moving in formation with weighted training weapons, going to hard points and defending, moving as a unit, moving in formation, resisting Clarity and Terry as they try to take the hard points. Of course, that point was focused on survival, so organized retreat and defense was the order of the day. Step 1 was learning how to hold out until backup arrived. After that was finding ways to deal with enemy champions if you didn't have one of your own. To that end, the entire army was learning not only shield work, but how to empower the shields with axiom to make them diffuse almost any kind of impact. At this point, you could hurl boulders at these people, and the biggest issue would be if they deflected onto their feet by accident or tried to physically lift them. "I don't get it," Magrica says after a bit. "Don't get what?" Jasper asks the obvious question. "Why don't they get angry and do something about it?" Magrica asks, and Jasper sighs when she doesn't continue. "Do I have to keep asking obvious questions?" he asks. "I thought you could read minds," Magrica teases. "That is an interrogation method and a scare tactic. Also, brains aren't books. Even if I could, I'd need to translate it anyways," he says, and she snorts in amusement. "Very well then, I'll ask. What is it that they should be getting angry about?" Lady Allure asks, and Magrica giggles a little. "They're so weak. They have axiom too. They can reach out and do things. They're being terrorized by members of their own race. It's Erumenta on Erumanta over there. The soldier girls should be figuring this out and answering in kind. Why aren't there firestorms, tornadoes, and floods to meet the solar flares and earthquakes?" Magrica demands in an incredulous tone. "I don't know. Maybe because they feel safer together? They know they can rely on each other, so they don't push in the way that separates champions from other warriors. Things like the Titan programs were just whispers in the Dauntless when Horus's memories were stolen and then implanted into my body. So it's not just natural for you to be so big and strong?" Lady Allure asks. "I was going through some pretty intense body dysmorphia, a sensation where you're in the wrong body, which at the time was accurate, so I made the body my own. All the shenanigans and weirdness that followed just made me more and more comfortable as myself as I grew into my own being and not just a copy of someone else." Jasper explains, and there's a nod from the more proper knight as Magrica snorts. "Well, whatever happened with you, big guy, it didn't happen with them. Look at them. They're so nervous in front of Terry and Clarity." To be fair, the idea of facing both of them at once is a hell of an order for even me, Jasper remarks wryly. "Yay, but they're playing nice. I just don't think any of them really want it," Magrica says in a slightly disappointed tone. "They were drafted. Most of them are sticking around out of a sense of obligation and not full desire. They want out of the war as soon as it's proper to do so. This isn't a way of life as it is for us three, it's an occupation. So of course there's no passion in their movements or learning. It's all a slow, unnatural process for them." Lady Allure muses. "But if their backs are against the wall," Jasper considers as he rubs his chin and takes care to not accidentally shave himself with his claws. An Earthani with a bald spot would just look silly. "Hey, there we go!" Magrica says as a geyser of water erupts to counter a rain of rocks and offer some shade to a force of Erumenta that has the attention of both Lady Clarity and Terry. Unfortunately, this just draws more attention from the two. But that just gets results. Apparently, some of the girls are done being pushed around and the water starts flying above them and below them as twin maelstroms of protection and defense. Then it's broken by a massive pillar of stone rising up, but the fact that Terry had to go that far for common soldiers in this army meant that something had clicked, something that let them push up to her level, or at least start moving in that general direction. If we can trigger that in the rest of the army, then we've gone from skilled troops to elite in just a few simple steps, Jasper notes. Provided that it's something that can be copied. Wasn't there a small group of girls that you tutored first? It was probably them. Lady Allure asks, and Jasper nods. Lena, Jane, Erica, Millie, Aqua, and Ariel. All of them are water aeromenta and had a bit more initiative and sheer guts than the rest of the girls I recruited. They were part of a foraging, hunting, and extortion party to try and get supplies for the rest, Jasper says before smirking and pointing down to where there are numerous separate squadrons of soldiers moving around as they complete their objectives for the exercise. However, I made them commanders. They're in separate groups and leading them. Unless things have gone completely tits up, then we have one water aeromenta resisting two aeromenta champions, or more likely, one aeromenta leading many to resist champion-level assault. Either way, we have a very powerful asset, which means we can take and keep strategic points from enemy assault even if they bring a champion in, if it's the latter. Lady Allure notes and Magrica snorts. We can do that too if we have more champions. The second is nice, but more champions is always better. Not necessarily. The champion system is very much something that encourages over-reliance on one or two assets on a battlefield, and I don't like that. If the difference between winning and losing is that one idiot has indigestion or a previously unknown allergy, then you're putting your hopes on some pretty shaky ground. Coming from the main champion of the army and the one thing everything else relies on, Magrica asks, and Jasper sighs. Yeah, that's the real problem. I'm the linchpin to all this, and there's damn sweet fuck all I can do about that. You are, and you aren't. I doubt your people will stop coming here if you drop dead on the spot. Not to mention, from what I've been hearing about your mother, my life is a cascade of drama both militarily and emotionally. Jasper notes in a bitter tone, and Magrica bursts into laughter. We have company, Lady Allure says softly, and Magrica stops laughing and climbs up Jasper's chest to look over his shoulder. Yeah, okay, it's the Foza girl. Yenis? Magrica is completely dismissive. Yenis, Jasper remarks, fully aware of not only her approach, but of a mild difference in the axiom and some mild currents under her fur. She just activated another tattoo to store something discreetly, likely a series of communicators. How can I help you? He asks as she comes close. You're really taking this seriously, aren't you? Yenis asks as she walks up to stand beside them. To Jasper's mild amusement, his antennae reach the same level as her eyes, even though he's sitting on the ground. Of course, I need to speak to an entire nation. Incompetence and ill preparation does nothing to help my cause or my people, so we train to see things through. You know they might request you do a different contest, right? They might demand you stand alone. There's a reason I sparred with each champion in my army, one after another. I must have missed that, Yenis admits. Doing what? It was awesome, Magrica protests. Things... Yenis hedges, and Lady Allure is giving her an unimpressed look. She was trying to be a spy for her people and is using the things I taught her about communicators or librarians to record as much as she can. I also think she swiped a few of them so she can vanish at will and call things a win, Jasper says easily. Yenis tenses up, clearly preparing to attack when Magrica speaks. But you give that stuff out for free. Yes, it's much like someone stealing from a charity to distribute it to those it was going to begin with. The sheer dismissal in Jasper's voice speaks volumes. That there's a tinge of amusement says almost as much. So you're saying, I'm free to take the librariums and the knowledge within them? Yenis asks, and Jasper reaches into his own pouch, pulls out a newly made one and tosses it at her. He had been expecting this conversation for some time and needed the appropriate props. Yes, here's another while we're at it, he says dismissively, and she quickly grabs it out of the air and begins checking through it. pausing when it lets her in and has a huge amount of information. I don't understand. Those who come to the Star Seekers are free to learn anything for free so long as they follow our rules. Long story short, you've been trying to steal what we freely give. Jasper explains, and he can almost hear her worldview cracking a little more thoroughly. So if I wanted to copy the books in the library, or the ones that are said to be summoned from beyond, by all means, just leave us the original in good shape and try not to rip them out of people's hands in your eagerness to study. Good manners may not be required, but they make things much easier for everyone. Jasper says lightly and then smiles as one of Terry's new assaults on a force is met with a huge cresting wave that rises up to block. Looks like it's happening more and more. What are you doing? Champions are one thing. Having soldiers that can resist champions, that's another, but also very important, Jasper says, as he looks down to see the wave wash up and along the air to grab at the boulders screaming down at the soldiers and washes them away. Do you do everything like this? Yinis asks in an uncertain tone. No. In fact, I've run off half-cocked and without a plan far too many times as is. The night of the riots is one such scenario. Just kept rushing off to grab people and get out as quickly as possible, Jasper explains and sighs. By the way, has Bright Dawn stopped burning yet? Magrica asks. No. But the Grand Midwives quickly got everyone that wasn't rioting out with the shuttle and have converted their temple into a combination military base and hospital to try and minimize the loss of life. Unfortunately, their own rule states they can't get into the fighting to do anything but protect their own people and rescue those that ask for their help. Jasper answers. Like all systems, the Grand Midwife neutrality has its ups and downs. Lady Allure notes in a pained tone. We can protect our own people, places, and secrets, and we freely offer our services. Even asking for peace in return isn't too big of an ask. It even makes a great deal of sense. We put a lot of work and energy into making sure that a person is born. Just throwing it away is selfishness, but people resent being told what they can't do on a good day. On the bad ones? On the bad ones, they're outright spiteful about it. Jasper finishes before smiling as a third group seems to have things clip, and a tendril of water tries to swat at Clarity and then wraps around her to blunt her incredibly bright light. Things are going as well as they can at the moment. Interfering further in Bright Dawn is going too far and stretching too thin at this point for only moderate gain at best. They have an internal matter and will need to sort themselves out before we move forward. We don't know if they're going to come out of this as a republic, an oligarchy, a complete democracy, or a kingdom. It all depends on where power ends up consolidated at the end, Jasper notes. If it doesn't end up as rubble, the city-states to the west of the east attempted to consolidate many times in the past, and the oligarchic system that was set up dissolved into infighting, and the entire short-lived nation breaking apart into independent communities, Lady Allure says, and Jasper slowly turns to look at her. It was the most interesting part of my history lessons, she protests defensively. There were so many backstabs and betrayals in that time that the average noble had 4 metaphorical daggers in their back, despite everyone only betraying each other once or twice. It's just that there was so much overlap that some of the betrayals counted for numerous people. The worst was when Madame Mimizi brought only a very specific type of food to a gathering of arms, and while her soldiers were already used to and immune to the effects of the stuff, the rest of the army was badly devastated despite winning, causing her to pick up a payday from the opposing army while still winning with the sabotaged army she was on, betraying 9 people at once. Oh my God, what was in the water at that time? That level of treachery, Jasper says in an awed tone. Saw her slowly strangled to death over 3 days for that stunt. She became an example. Lady Allure notes. I should hope so, Jasper exclaims. Are you starting to see why I find that time period fascinating? Morbidly so, but yes. He finishes with a sigh. This frigging world. Well, if you don't like it, leave. Magrica jokes and Yena snorts in amusement. It might catch fire if I do, Jasper says in a strained tone.